Hey everyone! Welcome to Update X24H, your go-to channel for the latest news, hottest dramas, breaking stories, and all the buzz from the world of entertainment. We're here to keep you updated, entertained, and always in the loop. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing family, because here at Update X24H, we bring you the news that matters, the drama you love, and the stories you can't miss. Thanks for being part of our community. Let's stay connected, stay updated, and keep the good vibes rolling. 17 arrests. One case that refuses to fade. Tonight, we put every piece on the table. What's alleged, what's uncertain, and what might change everything. If you care about truth, dignity, and the future of the industry, this is your moment to lean in. The reported arrest of 17 individuals in connection with Yu Menglong has reignited global attention. Allegations reference a coordinated network, with names such as Gao Taiyu and Fan Shiqi widely circulated online. Whether you are in Seoul, Tokyo, Bangkok, Singapore, Manila, Sydney, Paris, Toronto, Jakarta, or anywhere in Europe or the US, the core question is universal. Can celebrity, power, and accountability ever truly coexist? Tone for viewers: we're not here to sensationalize. We're here to clarify what's being said, highlight what remains unknown, and channel emotion into responsible action. When reports first emerged that 17 people had been arrested in connection with the death of Yu Menglong, the story immediately took on a new and heavier weight. What had once been spoken of in fragments and speculation suddenly appeared, at least on the surface, to have structure. A list of alleged perpetrators, a suggested hierarchy, and a narrative that pointed to a coordinated operation rather than an isolated incident. Names such as Gao Taiyu and Fan Shiqi began to circulate widely online, portrayed as central figures within this alleged network. Gao was described in some accounts as overseeing day-to-day actions, while Fan was linked to logistics and handling behind the scenes. Alongside them, a female accomplice, referred to by different names in different reports, was said to be responsible for filming and psychological manipulation, and was frequently described as still at large. Yet beneath the surface drama of numbers and names, there is a quieter, more sobering truth. Much of this remains in the realm of allegation, not confirmed fact. The figure of 17 arrests is powerful, but it is not in itself a verdict. The repetition of names creates a strong impression, but impressions are not the same as verified evidence. Even references to confessions must be treated with caution until they are examined in an open legal process, subjected to scrutiny, and contextualized with independent corroboration. This tension between the emotional impact of the claims and the measured distance required by fairness is what makes this stage of the story so delicate. For many people around the world, hearing these claims feels like the start of long-awaited accountability. For others, it raises concerns about whether the full truth will ever be visible. It is precisely here that we, as observers, are tested. We are invited to acknowledge the pain and outrage that fuel public interest, while also remembering that every individual named still has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. The claims laid out so neatly in headlines and viral posts are, in reality, the beginning of a difficult search for clarity, not the final chapter. To honor both the memory of Yu Menglong and the principles of justice, we have to hold both emotions and evidence in our hands at the same time, resisting the temptation to turn allegation into certainty before the full story is known. What truly marks this latest phase as different is not only the list of names, but the way the story invites us to look beyond individual acts and into the structure that may have enabled them. Earlier conversations focused on shock and isolated horror. Now people are beginning to ask how such a pattern could exist at all. The allegations describe rotations of responsibility, repeated procedures, and carefully maintained routines, hinting at something more systematic than a series of chaotic, impulsive actions. Whether or not every detail is accurate, the very idea of an organized pattern forces us to think about culture, power, and obedience, not just about crime. At the same time, the emphasis on documentation as a tool of control adds another layer of complexity. Recording, which most of us instinctively associate with truth and accountability, is here portrayed as a means of deepening fear, locking victims and participants alike into a cycle of silence. This inversion unsettles us because it touches on our own lives in a digital age where cameras can protect, but can also intimidate. Finally, the hints of broader connections, murmurs of collectors, cultural fronts, or hidden supporters, push the narrative into uncomfortable territory. They raise questions about demand, complicity, and the people who might benefit from staying invisible. None of this is fully proven, and it is vital to repeat that. Yet the shift in focus from single shocking acts to possible systems and incentives changes how we engage with the story. It asks us not only to feel, but to think more deeply about how such situations might arise, and what it would take in any industry or country to stop them from being possible in the first place. For many people following this story, the first reaction is raw and uncontrollable. Anger, disbelief, a sense that something precious has been taken in a way that feels both cruel and senseless. Fans who grew up with Yu Menglong's work may feel as though a part of their own history has been damaged, while others, who perhaps only vaguely knew his name, still find themselves moved by the idea of a young life cut short in such disturbing circumstances. Yet if we stop at outrage, we risk turning his name into nothing more than fuel for endless arguments and viral clips. The real challenge, and perhaps the only way to honor a person who can no longer speak for himself, is to transform that energy into a form of responsibility. That means asking not just who is to blame, but also what can we, as a community of viewers and fans, choose to do differently now. Responsibility begins in small, quiet decisions. It is choosing not to spread graphic rumors, not to attack people online based on unverified claims, and not to forget that every individual caught in the spotlight has a family, a private life, and a limited capacity to carry the weight of public opinion. It is supporting conversations about safer working environments in the entertainment industry, about mental health, and about the safeguards that should exist around young artists. It is also allowing ourselves to grieve without turning someone's pain into entertainment. When we take that step back, we see that this story is not only about darkness and harm. It is a mirror held up to us. It asks whether we will be passive consumers of tragedy, or whether we will use our voices, our clicks, and our attention to demand a culture that treats artists, and all human beings, with more care than it has in the past. One of the most difficult tasks for anyone following this case is learning to hold myth and fact apart, especially when emotions are running high and information arrives in fragments. A headline about 17 arrests can easily feel like a full stop, as if the story has reached its conclusion and justice has already been served. In reality, it is closer to a comma. An arrest is not a conviction, and a detailed narrative, no matter how compelling it sounds, is not the same as a proven chain of events. The human mind loves neat stories. It reaches instinctively for explanations that make sense of our shock and grief. But if we surrender completely to that instinct, we risk turning allegation into certainty long before the evidence has been tested. This is where a quieter courage is needed. The courage to wait, to question, and to accept complexity. Confessions, if they exist, must be examined in context. Consistency between different statements may point towards a shared truth, but it can also reflect shared pressure, shared misunderstanding, or shared fear. The mention of powerful names may signal the scale of a problem, yet it can also become a magnet for projection, a canvas onto which the public paints its anger at systems that feel distant and unaccountable. To honor both the victim and the living, we have to resist the temptation to treat every rumor as revelation. Instead, we can choose a different path. We can read carefully, cross-check sources, and ask ourselves who is speaking, why they might be speaking, and what remains unseen. We can keep space in our minds for the possibility that some details are wrong, that new information may emerge, and that real justice, if it is to mean anything, must be rooted in truth rather than in the stories we most want to believe. What makes this story especially powerful, and at times overwhelming, is that it no longer belongs to one city or one country alone. It moves across languages and time zones, appearing in Korean forums, Japanese comment sections, Thai and Singaporean news feeds, Filipino threads, Australian discussions, French and Canadian commentary, American podcasts, and European group chats. Each place receives it through its own cultural lens. In some countries, people focus on the failure of institutions. In others, on the vulnerability of artists. In others, still on the mystery and the unanswered questions. Yet beneath these differences runs a quiet, shared current. A sense that a young life in the public eye has collided with something far larger than it should ever have had to face. That shared feeling is where a more thoughtful global response can begin. At the same time, the story must be handled with local care. Behind every headline and hashtag there are parents, friends, colleagues and fans living with this loss in a very direct, immediate way. They do not have the luxury of treating it as a distant drama. When we comment from afar, it is easy to forget that our curiosity, our theories and our outrage echo back into the lives of people who did not choose to become symbols. That is why it matters how we speak, what we share and what we demand. A global audience has enormous power. It can pressure systems to be more transparent, but it can also unintentionally deepen wounds by spreading graphic rumors or turning grief into spectacle. To balance these forces, we need both wide vision and gentle hands. We can use the reach of the internet to call for fairness and truth, while also remembering that dignity is not a regional value but a human one, owed equally to the dead and to the living who remain. If you value clear, compassionate, and responsible storytelling, please subscribe to Update X24H, like this video, and share it with a friend who cares about the truth. Thank you for spending your time with us. Stay kind, stay curious, and keep your notifications on so you won't miss our next update.